You know that we are in the midst of a condo crisis when you see some of these vintage condos now being offered at a 79% discount compared to the overall average sale price. You heard that right, guys. 79% discount. Where is this happening? All over South Florida. I'm going to give you the rundown here, but this big headline one is happening right over here in Sunny Isles Beach, okay? According to Condo Vultures, they are a brokerage here in Miami that specializes in condo sales. They've specialized in the Miami market and condo sales ever since we had the last housing crash in 2008. And they've been tracking this stuff, and according to their most recent data, we have vintage condos in Sunny Isles Beach that are now selling for 79% less than the overall average condo resale price in Sunny Isles. Now, when you look at that on the surface, it is shocking, but keep in mind that we are comparing really old buildings to really new buildings, because anybody who knows Sunny Isles Beach, it is like the tale of two different worlds, like much of Miami is, okay? The oceanfront now is completely dominated by brand new buildings that have all been built within the last 20 years or so, and a lot of them are very new, being built in the last 10 to 15 years. Now here's a house for sale that's probably a great example that's going to need a reality check, because just by looking at the outside of this house, you can see that all the foliage is overgrown and there's a lot of deferred maintenance. You can see tiles on the roof up there that are kind of falling apart, not looking so good, different things like that, and it looks like the house is vacant. And this house is now for sale for $2.3 million, and it was purchased back in 2021 for $1.57 million. So that is a huge increase in asking. We're talking over $700,000 more than what the previous owner paid, and it's not looking like it's worth $2.3 million. Now they just listed it, so we don't know what's going to happen. But you can see this house, I mean, this is part of the house here. Things just aren't looking too good here. It looks like this house really needs a lot of love. If the outside looks like this, imagine what the inside looks like. And part of the reason they ask so much also is because this dock space right across the street here is apparently included with the sale. So this is kind of appealing to somebody who owns a boat, but you're going to be in for a fixer-upper for $2.3 million. Anyways, back to the condo debacle. Here's the deal, guys. A vintage condo is something that is now being referred to as any building that is over 30 years old, which is pretty much the vast majority of the condo stock here in Florida in general. So right now, any vintage condo is definitely tougher to sell, and they're more expensive to insure, and a lot of these buildings are being slammed with huge special assessments, a big increase in monthly maintenance fees as well. And in order to get buyers interested in these properties, you're going to have to see the prices come down substantially in order for buyers to start being willing to take the risk. And we're going to get into some more of the data here in a little bit to show you what's going on with this. But the big story here is just how much of a discount these properties are being sold at right now in order for people to just get out from under them. You know, a 79% discount off of the average sale price in Sunny Isles is huge, guys. Same thing is happening in Hollywood and Hollandale Beach, although just by not as huge of a margin. The vintage units over there are now being sold at a 31% discount compared to the average selling price in this area. And to top it all off, this area, Hollandale and Hollywood Beach, is arguably one of the worst areas. It's probably ground zero right now for condo inventory, guys. Wait till you hear this number. There is about 19 months of supply of condo resale inventory in Hollywood and Hollandale Beach, Florida. That's like going back to the levels that we saw during the last housing downturn, guys. This is huge. And to just give you an idea of how much inventory has picked up throughout the state of Florida in general recently, take a look at this graph right here. This goes all the way back to January of 2008 during the last housing crash, and you can see the sheer amount of condo inventory we had throughout the state of Florida was massive, guys. We had about 160,000 units for sale all the way back in the day. And today, we have only 71,000 units for sale, which sounds like a lot less, but look how much it has gone up since the pandemic. And for a long time there, between about 2013 and 2021, the condo inventory was pretty stable, hanging out right around 50 to 60,000 units for sale. And now we've already surpassed that. So we are above now pre-pandemic levels of inventory for condos and rising. And at the very same time that the condo inventory has risen past pre-pandemic levels, we are also seeing the pending inventory start to crash. Take a look at this chart. Now this only goes back to 2012 or so, and you can see the pending inventory for condos and just how much it has come down over the past year or so. Like, people are just not buying these places, guys. Everybody's taking the wait and see approach, which is what I've been telling everybody who's interested in buying one of these condos to do. There's a lot of uncertainty right now with buying a condo, and let's face it, a ton of uncertainty in the economy in general. So now is just not the right time to be making such a risky move, in my opinion. If you already own it, it's one thing. If you're looking at buying one right now with all the uncertainty and all the unknowns, I would hold off. And this chart shows you that people are doing just that. And I want to give you guys a real world example of this and how this condo crash is even affecting the luxury side of the market as well, because it's not just vintage condos that are in trouble. One of my viewers, Michael, he sent me an email because he also lives in Miami Beach and he was looking at buying a condo, okay? And take a look at his story here. I'll show you guys the listing and what happened here. Now take a look at this listing. It was actually purchased back in 2008 for $655,000, right? And then the owner decided to list it for sale in January of 2023. So we're talking 2 years ago now, for $2.12 million. Was what they initially thought that they could get for this place, okay? Huge amounts of price reductions here. I mean, the price reductions are so many, can't even go through them all, guys. I'll just scroll them across the screen, okay? But last July, in 2024, he offered $1.3 million to buy this property, okay? And he said that the owner was repulsed by his offer, and it sat on the market for 2 years, obviously, and it just now sold for $1.1 million. So think about that. They were originally asking $2.1 million, and now it just sold for $1.1 million. Half off, guys. That's a 50% discount off the original asking price, and the buyer saved $1 million. And the worst part is Michael didn't actually get the unit because of real estate agents' greed. He made this offer for $1.3 million. Didn't end up taking his offer, right? And he asked his real estate agent, how come they just sold the place for $1.1 million when they didn't accept his offer for $1.3 million? Well, you know what happened? The listing agent ended up getting both sides of the transaction. So they represented the buyer and the seller and sold it for much less, at $1.1 million. So this real estate agent took huge advantage of their client. Essentially what this real estate agent did is, he misinformed the seller grossly about how much this place was actually worth, clearly, by looking at the initial asking price versus what it actually sold for. So lots of bad advice during the listing, okay, combined with the fact that they turned down a better offer than what it actually ended up selling for, which could have been the seller's fault. We don't know that for sure, who's at fault for that. But the real estate agent definitely pushed the seller to accept this offer for $1.1 million, of course, because they were able to get both sides of the pie and get a big double commission. Every agent loves that, guys. I've gotten double commissions before. It's fantastic, and also it makes it much easier to close the deal. You're dealing with both sides. If you're competent, then you can make sure that the transaction goes very smoothly with minimal issues. But I wanted to highlight this example because this building's from 2001. So it is not considered a vintage condo. This building is, 24 years old. It's getting close to being a vintage condo, but it's still considered a newer building, right? And even places like that are seeing massive discounts right now, $1 million off, and taking 2 years to sell. Now, a lot of that is probably the fact that they had completely unrealistic expectations when they listed it for sale. Okay, we'll give it that. But let's say even if they would have listed the property for sale back then at 1.7 or 1.6 million, they still wouldn't have gotten anywhere close to the actual selling price of 1.1. What transactions like this highlight is just how skeptical buyers are. If I'm going to pay for a building like this, I want to make sure I'm getting the best deal possible, because we don't know where the expenses are going, is essentially what buyers are saying with these huge lowball offers and eventually actually selling at these prices. Because one huge problem with a lot of these condos right now is, take a look at this. 62% of South Florida condo associations failed to complete the structural integrity reserve study deadline that was due by 2025, okay? According to the Miami Association of Realtors, they found out that 62% of these buildings failed to complete this mandatory study that was required to be completed by January 1st of this year. And so what is this failure to complete this study? What kind of impact is that going to have on the market? Because if you're a real estate agent and you're trying to advise your client appropriately and trying not to get sued, then you would be telling your clients right now that, hey, you should really only buy in a building that has done one of these structural integrity reserve studies, because if you don't, then you could really be in for a world of hurt. Because if they haven't done it, chances are it's because they're either refusing to do it or because they can't afford to. And that is a huge red flag for a buyer right now. And basically what this study does is it's pretty much an evaluation of the property where they assess the current physical condition and the future needs of the building, okay? And as part of the study, a financial estimate is provided, which enables condo associations to budget and collect reserves for current and future expenses that are necessary to maintain their buildings for at least the next decade. And if you are a buyer of a condo, you are entitled to receive a copy of this structural integrity reserve study. And there's so many people looking to get out of these buildings right now, but they are kind of trapped, because if you're in a building that's not doing the right thing, you're in a building like this where they're not complying with the law and not following what they're supposed to do, then there's going to be consequences from this, guys. And one of the consequences that's being floated is revoking insurance coverage for buildings that aren't complying with the law. Now, we don't know if this is going to happen yet. This was a proposal that happened recently in Florida Congress. So the proposal right now is to bar Citizens Insurance, which is the Florida insurance company of last resort, from providing coverage to condominiums that fail to comply with the new requirements. But a lot of people are pushing back against this and saying this is going to threaten to displace thousands of condo owners in Florida, and this is not going to be good for people, which I kind of agree, because you know, there needs to be some sort of repercussion, there needs to be some sort of punishment, but this probably isn't the right one. And I understand that people need to throw ideas out there and something has to be done. You can't just let these people get away with not following the law. There has to be some sort of compliance. This is something I mentioned previously in all the videos we talked about this condo crisis is, okay, what's going to happen if they don't comply? Well, they're just now starting to perform those discussions. And essentially what this would do is it would turn Citizens Insurance from a safety net into the reason of why you lose your home. But one thing that they are talking about is that there's not going to be any financial bailouts for this. So people are either going to have to comply or pay up, or there's going to be some sort of serious repercussions. And I don't know exactly what they're going to settle on, but the fact that they're discussing this in the Florida legislature tells you that there are going to be repercussions for not complying, guys. And even if there are no legal repercussions, what this is going to do for all the buildings that don't comply is it's going to just tank their values so low that most people aren't even going to want to buy them. You know, nobody's going to want to buy in a building that is operating lawlessly and not following regulations in order to keep the building safe. You couldn't pay me to live in a building that wasn't following what they're supposed to do. This would have a huge impact on the insurance market as well, because there are 18,468 condo buildings in Florida that are insured by Citizens Insurance, and half of those buildings are located in South Florida, here in Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach. So we have such a huge concentration of buildings like this right here in South Florida. And here's something else to think about. The median cost for these condos to produce one of the structural integrity reserve studies is about $6,000. So if they are not spending $6,000 just to perform a study, imagine the other things that are being swept under the rug, because in the grand scheme of things, for a huge building, $6,000 is nothing, guys. In fact, that's less than what you'll get hit with a typical special assessment these days. So it's really insignificant. So buying in a building that hasn't performed this study could be a financial death sentence for you. So unless you're buying a new construction building right now, or you're going to buy in a building that you can see their reserve study, you can see their budget, you can see their meeting minutes, and you can tell that everything's on the up and up, that would give you the green light to go ahead and move forward with the deal. But if any of those things is not true, you should not be buying in that condo right now, guys, because there are just too many unknowns, and you don't want to be the one left holding the bag. So I'm not saying you can't buy a condo, I'm just saying you have to exercise extreme caution, even more so than if you're buying any other type of property right now. And speaking of buying property, I wanted to share something with you guys. One of my viewers, Forrest, he wrote me an email talking about how he was extremely happy with the realtor referral service that I have. And this is something that I have linked down in the description for anybody who needs to hire a real estate agent, whether you need a buyer's agent or a seller's agent, okay? I just wanted to give you his good review here because it was really nice to hear how well this has been working out for people. He said he was very happy with his agent that he was assigned, and he said that the agent was fluent and knowledgeable in the area of real estate. He only had to show them 2 houses and they ended up buying one of them. And what happened was they were looking for a while, and there was a house that he originally saw last September for $350,000, okay? They didn't make an offer on it. They weren't interested at the time. And then they saw the price was lowered to $319,000. And then the house went under contract right away, but the deal ended up falling through due to the buyers not being able to obtain the financing. Something else I've been talking about a lot here on the channel too. But anyways, the agent had his ear to the ground, and he heard that the deal fell through and was able to get them to make an offer. And he told them to offer $290,000, which is $30,000 less than what it was being listed at. And the seller immediately agreed, and they had a deal in place within 30 minutes. So Forrest was extremely happy with his savings and his real estate agent's performance. And this was all with my referral service, which is a completely free thing that I offer to you guys. So I just wanted to share that success story because I think it's so great when people have these experiences, and it makes me feel good knowing that I'm just offering something that is helping people, and it helps the channel if you use it. But of course, the other thing to note here is that this buyer was in Roanoke, Virginia, okay? And this house was originally for sale for $350,000 and ended up selling for $290K, guys. That is a sweet discount. We're talking $60,000 off the original listing price. And I know I showed you some extreme example with the condo earlier, $1 million off, but this is a more down to reality version of that, and it shows you that this housing market is softening substantially with condos, with houses, with everything. So don't be afraid to make lowball offers, because you might be surprised the deal you can get right now. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and if you don't want to wait for my next video to come out, check out this one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.